started. Welcome once again to day 58 of our online C# programming class. As mentioned in today's email, we're going to continue going on with the topic of databases today. Yesterday, when I sent out the afternoon email, I mentioned there were about 15 terms that we either had not talked about or we had not talked about in much detail. So we're going to hit on those first of all today. All right. When we get done with that, we're going to write this SQLTester program. I'm going to write it, but I think what I'll do is I will put it out on GitHub, so you can watch or you can write it with me. It's totally up to you. Now, just so you know, this SQLTester program is only going to be designed for select queries. It's not going to do the other ones, so it's not going to do updates. It's not going to do deletes. It's not going to do creates. It could be modified to do that, but this is what was done. All right, and then finally, before we get started, as it says right there, I want to talk about these two URLs that I've gotten over the last 2 days. This is one I got last week, and as it says, earn a free C# certification from Microsoft and Free Code Camp. All right. And this is what you end up getting. Now, does it mean anything to you? Well, if you're looking to get a job as a C# programmer, it sure won't hurt. All right. But it's an article in here and they explain what it's about, what you go over here, etc. Okay. And that's the one from Free Code Camp. And there's basically a similar article that I got this morning from Microsoft that says earn your C# certification with this new learning series. And they do mention that it's in conjunction with Free Code Camp. It's in here someplace. All right. So, I mean, again, if you're interested in it, fine. If you're not, fine. I may go through it myself. I don't really know. All right. Okay. So your chapter 17 and 18, the file IO and the link stuff, is going to be due this Sunday, and actually that will work out nicely. Early next week, we will be start going over chapter 20. And chapter 20 is going to talk about something that's called EF Core, or Entity Framework Core. And we'll get to it at that time. But the point is, when you write EF Core, you can write it in different ways. And the way that they basically show it in chapter 20 is through the use of link queries. So link is not going away, is what I'm telling you. All right, remember that for chapter 17, as it says, you'll only have to do the chapter 17 written test. For chapter 18, as it says, it's both the written test and those 3 homework or lab assignments, those being, again, the employee search, the song search, and the student grade. For chapter 19, there's going to be homework, and what's going to happen for the homework is I'm basically going to do it. All right. You can, again, do it with me. You can, whatever you want, but I'm going to do that probably for chapters 19, 20, 21, and 22, and where I will go through something and then basically assign you to do it, kind of mimic or mock what I'm doing. And I guess each one of them will probably be worth 50 points. So hopefully that's going to be a way for people to pick up 200 points. All right, there'll be more to come on that as we go on, okay? All right, so with all that said, what I'm going to do, as we did yesterday, is I'm going to start up Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, SMMS, and we've been working with the HR, or the Human Resources database. We worked with that virtually all period yesterday. So if I go in here and I go to my database and I go to HR, there it is. And remember from yesterday, we created it. We added these 7 or 8 tables, a countries table, a departments table, a dependents table, an employees table, a jobs table, a locations table, and a regions table. Now, I'm not going to bring it back up again, but yesterday, as I mentioned, when I sent out the afternoon email to you, I said there were several topics that we either had not talked about at all, or had not talked much about. So I'm going to start today by going over those 15 or so topics. And the first one is what's called union. All right. And a union basically allows you to take and write a query where usually the way that you will write a union is that you will combine information together from two different tables. Now, it may make more sense to actually show it to you. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it like this. If we go to our employees table here and we open up the design, you can see that each employee has a first name, a last name, and other information. Okay, no, nothing big there, nothing that you probably haven't already figured out or seen before. And if we go to the dependents table, as an example, and we also look at the design to that table, then you'll notice that also they have a first name and a last name. In fact, there might be other tables in here that have a first name and a last name, but we're going to use these two. So we're going to use the employees table and the dependents table, and we're going to write a query based on that. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to right mouse click on the name of my database, and I'm going to choose new query, bring up a new query window in here, and I'm going to select first name and last name from employees. Now, you know already that's going to list, we've got like 40 employees. That'll list all their first names and all their last names. Nothing new there, nothing surprising there. All right. But what we're going to do is we're going to say union. And again, union basically means kind of combine. And I'm going to say union, and we'll say select first name, last name, again, this is case insensitive, but I'm just trying to do it the way they did it in the book, or in the way that it was done. So from dependents, order them by last name. And just in case there's anybody with the same last name, then we'll do it by first name. All right. Now I want to run this, and then we'll go back and talk about it. So here it is. So notice if you start looking through this, you know we're going to have at least 40 records that are going to be returned because we've got 40 employees. Many of these employees have dependents. So there's 30 dependents and there's 40 employees. So you'll notice we've got David Austin, and then we've got Fred Austin. We've got Herman or Hammond Bear, and then Kirsten Bear, etc. All right. So what did we do here? What we did was we told the system already employed and grab just their first name and just their last name. And then we told it to combine those with the first name and the last name from our dependents table. What that should mean is if I come in here and I write a new query and I type in select first name, last name from dependents, out of 40 employees, and when I just ran that union query, it came up with 70. 40 plus 30 would give me 70. And as you can see, there's the 30. All right. Now, is this that big of a thing? Well, not in this example, but it did show with what we just looked at here. All right. What it did show in here was the fact that you're able to combine information from two different tables together. Now, in order to do that, these fields, the first name and last name field, since we're combining them from two different tables, they have to be set up the same way. In other words, in this case, I think they're both varchars or varchar 50s or whatever, but you couldn't do it for example, if one was a char and one was a varchar, they have to be the same data type. And if you have specified a size, typically they have to be the same size, or just weird things can happen. Either it wouldn't work or it wouldn't work the way that you expected it to work. All right. So again, the union operator is used to combine two or more result sets from multiple queries. And that's what we've done right there. We wrote two different queries. All right. We wrote one select statement here and one select statement here. All right. And then we union them. So we said, combine the results of this with the results of this, and then take all those results and order them. All right. This can be a really good tool. All right. For instance, let's suppose that you work for a company that maybe had two different, I don't know, I'm trying just off the top of my head, maybe they had two different versions of products or something like that, or maybe two different mailing lists. As long as they were set up the same way, where if you had like this, if this was, rather than a first name and a last name from employees and dependents, maybe, like I said, maybe it's customers or something like that. Customers in one database and customers in another database, that kind of thing. All right. So that's a union. And it actually is used, I think at least, it's used more than you probably think it would be. All right. Now, most everything we've done so far, I think you may or may not agree with this, but most everything we've done so far has been at least fairly intuitive. All right. I mean, you can look at it and kind of say, oh, yeah, okay, I see what we're doing here. And one of the reasons that I think it's been fairly intuitive thus far is we really haven't been doing much of anything programmatically, but there are some programmatic things that you can do in here. And I mentioned this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. One of the things that you can use inside of here is a case expression. And just like using a switch with cases, the case expression here allows you to evaluate a series of conditions. All right. And there are basically there's two different ways you can do this. There's a simple case and there's a searched case. All right. Let's just take a look as an example in here. All right. And let's go back to the employees table and let's quickly, in fact, let's just run this. Select star from employees. All right. And when we run this, you can see what we get. There's nothing new here. All right. But one of the things that's here when you look at it is we've got a hire date. All right. And, we could use as an example. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little weird because we're in the year 2024 and you look at these hire dates and they're all these people look like they've been around somewhere approximately 30 years. All right. But if we just did this, let's see what years we actually have in here. So we could come in and do this. You already know this. We could come in and put in hire date. All right, from employees. We could do that. And then it would just give us the hire dates. All right, we could bring this out a little bit to look at, but you can see it. All right. And there is a way, and I'm trying to think of it offhand, to pull out just the year from this. And I don't remember what it is. All right. But we could do that. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in and and I'm looking at this. In fact, let's do this. Let's select hire date and then let's order it by hire date. And we'll do it in descending order. All right. So we should have 40 of these. And you notice our last employee was hired in the year 2000, and our first employee was hired in the year 1987. So the employee that's been here the longest, all right, it looks like, okay, the longest it looks like has been here about 37 years. And the one that's been here the shortest amount of time, okay, has been here 24 years, approximately 24 years, okay? So we can write this, but what if we do want to do this and we want to, instead of writing this, where we did this before, okay, let's say we want to add a new column here. All right, we want to add a new column, and that new column is going to have how many years the employee has been there. All right, and I'm wondering, could we do this? Can we select? Let's see. Instead of saying this like we did right here, what if I come in here and do this? What if I say select and I say we're 2024 minus year of hire date. All right. From employees. Okay, so select this 20 minus, I think there needs to be two parens here. All right, 20 minus that. And we'll say this as, and we'll call this hire year. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I really and truly don't. All right, but I want to run it. So let's see. And it looks like it has it. Okay. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, I want to take this one step further, and I want to say distinct. So I don't want there to be any matches on the hire year. All right, and it isn't really the hire year, it's years employed. All right, so we're going to run that, and it says order by must appear in the select list if a select distinct. All right, so I want to order it by, oh, let's order it by years employed. And hopefully that'll work, and it does. So you see, we've got 37, 35, 30, you can see them, okay? So there are 12 different years that are here, all right? And I want to copy that. So I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to highlight, thought it would let me highlight all of it here. And I'm going to throw it in here just so I have it. All right, so there it is, right there. All right, why am I doing all this? So that I can come in here and actually show you how we can go in, and this is one way of writing a statement that's going to show us this. Now, I could do a select star, but I don't want to do this. Let's do the first name, the last name, the hire date, and this thing that we did right here. All right, 20, etc. All this junk that you see right here. All right, as years employed. But we want to do a little bit more than that. Okay, everything that's here is cool. From employees, we still want to order it. Let's order it by, we should still be able to do it by years employed. All right, that's fine. But before we do this, let's put in a little bit more code. All right, and that is we're going to use a case in here. All right, and the case is going to be based on this. Okay, and when you do a case in here, we're not doing a switch, but we're doing the same type of thing. All right, and remember, these are our possibilities. Okay, so I'm going to put in here, you use what's called a when. So I'm going to say when 37, then we're going to say, if that's the case, then 37 years. You can kind of figure out, hopefully, where we're going here. We've got 12 different ones in here. All right, so I just copied that down 12 times. All right, so we've got 37 35, 34, 33, 31, 30. And of course, we have to fix these too. So this would be 35, 34, 33, 31, and 30. All right. And then in addition, we've got 29, 28, 27. 26, 25, 24. And again, we'll fix these as well. And 24. All right. When we're done with a case, we've got to let the system know we're done with a case. So we say end. And, we give it a name. Okay. We can call this whatever we want. How about years? So end years. Okay. From employees. And then we want to order it by. It doesn't look like it likes this. And I'm not sure if it will or not, but I'm going to see if this will work. I might have to strip all this stuff off of here. And I do need another paren there. All right. Let's see if it works. It does not. Incorrect syntax near the word as. So it doesn't like the as in there. All right, so we'll get rid of that, which means when we do the order by, we can't order it by that. Let's just order it by, just so we have something here. We'll order it by last name. All right, I'll see if that works now. I don't know if it will or not. All right, it doesn't like the from. So let's see, from employees, there's the word from. End years. I'm going to get rid of all that, just don't do anything. So select first name, last name, hire date, case, the current year, 2024, minus the year that they were hired, when, and then we've got a then. So these are all of our values. All right. Then we've got this, and we want to end. Like I said, we should be able to give that any name we want in here. All right. From employees. And we should actually be able to do an order by in here. Incorrect syntax near the word from on line 16. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16. So end years from employees. We can put an order by in there. We should be able to, but that shouldn't matter one way or the other in this. So let's see. There it is. Don't know why it didn't work before, but there it is. Okay. Now, I don't know if we can actually do this, but we might be able to even do this here. So when I say order by, in fact, let's do this. Let's order it by hire date. That would make more sense. All right. So you can see we've got it by hire date. And since it is an ascending order, we've got it everybody in here and how many years they've been there. Now, is this that big a thing? Well, again, look at it in a bigger picture. All right. As an example, maybe you've got something set up with a company that has hundreds or thousands or more employees. Then when it is their hire date anniversary, all right, maybe something kicks in. For example, at Rankin Technical College, what they do is after you're here for 5 years, which I have been, you're eligible for a pension. All right. And they do the pension based on the number of years that you've been working there. All right. As an example, July 5th of this year, I'll celebrate my 8-year anniversary at Rankin. All right. So maybe something happens on an anniversary date, or maybe it's something as simple as on their hire date, you send them an email congratulating them on another year, something like that. All right. But the idea is, and what I'm trying to get across to you here is this is the syntax for it. All right. And it also shows you a little bit of date math. I use the current year, and there's like a now function very similar to the one that you use in C#, but I don't remember it offhand. So I just put in the current year. And then all I want from the hire date is to grab the year. All right. So that's what I'm telling it to do right there. Okay. All right. Now, if you remember when we started this, I said that there was both kind of a regular case expression, and there's another one that's known as a searched case expression. So here's the first one. All right, there it is. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to write a searched case expression right now. So we will select the first name and the last name, but we're not going to search it for everybody. What we're going to do in here, all right, is we're going to basically come up and say that if somebody is making less than $3,000, we're going to assume this is like per month is what they're making. So if they're making less than $3,000 a month, then their salary is low. If they're making between, all right, $3,000 and $5,000 a month, their salary is average. And if they're making over $5,000 a month, that their salary is high. Okay, that's what we're doing. But we are searching in here. So for our case, rather than what we had before, where we had exact values, all right, what we're going to be doing, for lack of better words, is we're going to use ranges in here. So we'll say case. And again, you can play with this with tabbing and whatever all you want. It doesn't really matter. It eats up all white space anyway. So I'm going to say when salary is less than $3,000 a month, all right, then we'll just put in low salary. All right. And then we'll put in another one when salary, we should be able to say here between, which is a key word, all right, between, or which means greater than or equal to 3,000 and 5,000. All right. If that doesn't work, it should, but then I'll use it again with the greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. But then average salary. All right. When salary greater than 5,000, then high salary. All right. We'll end this because we have to always end these cases. And we can just call it salary search. I mean, we can call it whatever we want. All right. From employees. Let's see if that works. All right. It's telling me that it doesn't like something. And it looks like I left a comma off there. Remember, we are getting 1, 2, 3 different fields. So each one of them, except the last one, needs to be comma separated. All right. So there we go. Now that's a little ugly, but you can see, taking a look in there, what we have. All right. And well, what we could do is we could do an order by salary, and as an example, in descending order. And if we do that, you'll notice first we've got all of our high salaries. Then we've got our average salaries. We can make this wider here. And then we've got our low salaries. All right. And I guess I capitalized some of them and didn't do other ones, but it's no biggie. All right. Should just be consistent. That's all. So there's our 40 employees. Let me just drag this way the heck up and you can see where they are. All right. So it looks like 28 of our employees have what's considered a high salary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 have what's considered an average salary, and 5 have what's considered a low salary. All right. But again, we are coming in here and we are searching based on predetermined things that we're looking for. And again, when you start to think to yourself, okay, fine, I get what you're saying. Give me an example of where you'd really use this. All right. What if I wanted to go in there and I was searching a product database and I wanted to find out what product was really selling or what product was really not selling? If it was not selling, maybe I do a price cut on it, have some kind of a sale on it. Maybe if it was really selling, I would raise the price. All right. So there's a lot of different ways in which, again, this could be used. All right. So, all right, let's get rid of this. And the next one that was on the list was the insert command. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I just want to show you show you this twice. So you've seen this already. We've got select star from employees, and you know that we've got 40 employees. There's nothing new there. All right. You see that with everybody. All right. And if we go back and we take a look at our employees table and we look at the design of it, you'll notice that we don't have to put in a first name. We don't have to put in a phone number. We don't have to put in a manager ID. We do not have to put in a department ID. So out of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fields that are in here, 6 are mandatory. All right, those being the employee ID, the last name, the email, the hire date, the job ID, and the salary. All right. And one of them is not. All right. As an example here. Okay. All right. So let's show 2 ways that we can do this. All right. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to insert myself in, first of all, as a new employee here. All right. So when you do an insert, it's an insert into followed by the name. All right. So followed by the name. All right. And that's our employees table. Okay. And what I'm going to do here, and again, the way you space this out, etc., is up to you. I'm going to put in a first name, my first name, a last name, my last name. All right. And I don't remember what else was even mandatory, but I think that an email was. So email. We'll put in all of them. Phone number, hire date, salary. Oh, it was a job ID. Job ID, salary, manager ID, and department ID. All right. So that's that. And then I'm going to put in values and I'm going to start filling it up. It has to be within parens. So my first name, my last name, my email, all right, my phone number, all right, my hire date. Now, I don't remember exactly how you put in dates, but I'm going to try to put it in the way that they show it here, which is going to be 2024 dash 04-03. I believe that that's correct. We'll see in just a minute. All right. My job ID, I'll just put a 1 in there. I don't even know what that is. My salary, let's put 55, 55, a bunch of 5s. All right. My manager ID, I'll put in 100, and the department ID, I'll put in 10. All right. First of all, let's just see if that worked. All right. So what do we have here? I mean, look at this. First name, last name, email, phone number, hire date, job ID, salary, manager ID, and department ID. So you can see the correlation, everything that's in here. If I skip something, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it looks like I've got everything in there. The only thing I'm not sure about is the date, but we'll see if that works or not in just a second. So I'll execute, and it says 1 row affected. Good. All right. So if we come back again, I'm going to grab this because I want to use it again, use something similar to it, but I'm going to do a select star from employees. All right. And if I run this and I look at the end at the last one, that should be me. And it's kind of hard to see, but I've got there 1100. I don't know why it's doing that with the numbers, but it is. It's got my first name, last name, email, phone number, which I put in a little different format. The hire date, the job ID, everything is in here, is what I'm telling you. All right. Why am I taking the time to show you this? Well, I want to go back to here. All right. And all I have to put in here are these 4 fields: a last name, a phone number, a manager ID, and a department ID. All right. So when we put these in, all right, I'll leave the first name and the last name in here. And then we'll just fill in the ones that are required. So phone number, so I'm not going to have an email, but I have to let the system know in one way or the other. I can either type the word null in here, which will work. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to redo it in just a minute. So phone number, and then manager ID and department ID. All right, so phone number, and this will be null as well. All right. And it was a job, null. We've got a salary, that can be null. And then these. So we'll just put in here Jane Doe. And let's see if that one works. All right, it did not. Cannot insert the value null into column email. First name, last name. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Email was not required, so it doesn't like null. All right, so let's talk about how we can fix this. All right, we only have to list the ones that we're putting values into. So first name, last name, we're not going to use an email, so we can get rid of that, which means we can get rid of this. We have a phone number. We don't have a hire date or a job ID or a salary, so we can get rid of all those, and we can get rid of the word null for each one of these. So now all we have in here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. Does it take this? Cannot insert the value null in email. All right. It says does not allow nulls. Insert failed. I thought that it did. So there's email. Oh, I'm doing it backwards. All right. It's all the ones that don't have checks. So we need all these. So the ones we don't need a last name, even though I'm going to leave it in. We don't need a phone number. We don't need a manager ID. We don't need a department ID. All right. So let me fix this. So we do. So we need, I'm going to put in a first name. I'm going to put in a last name. I mean, you typically wouldn't just put in a last name. All right. But we do need an email. We need a phone number. No, we don't need a phone number. We need a hire date. We need a job ID. We need a salary. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we don't need, let's see, we need an employee ID, but that's going to be provided for us. We don't need a first name, but we'll provide it anyway. We do need a last name. We do need an email. We do need a hire date. We do need a job ID. We do need a salary. So we need these. All right, let's go back and rewrite this query. So I'm going to insert into employee. I'm just going to drop this in like this. I know, all right. I mean, I can actually do that and put it over multiple lines like that. Looks pretty ugly, but you could do that if you wanted to. All right. And actually it was reacting exactly the way that it should have, because email was a required field and I was treating it as though it was not a required field. All right. So we've got all these. Okay. So there's first name, there's last name. Here will be email. All right. We'll put in a hire date. And we'll put in, I don't know, January 1st. All right. So let's see, 2024 0101 as an example. All right. So we've got all that in there, a job ID and a salary. Well, the salary won't be $10. That would be kind of silly. But let's put 44444 in there for a salary. And the job ID, I don't remember what that was. All right. It's an int, but let's see. Let's run one more query here. I just want to put in something that's valid. All right. Okay, that was that small number there. So we'll just put in 6. Okay. Let's see if it takes that. All right. So one row affected. So Jane Doe should now be in here as the next employee, as employee number 42. All right. So let's see if that worked. Move that up. And you'll notice with her now, we've got a null for the phone number, a null for the manager ID, and a null for the department ID. All right. So that appears at least to be working. Now, just so you know, we could have put multiple rows in there. So back when I wrote that first one, and I probably, of course, I was too silly to save it. All right. But when we did that first one, we could have said select star, or insert into, and you could have had one parenthesized list, comma, another parenthesized list, comma, etc. Totally legit to do that. All right. But that's the insert. I know we've talked about it before. All right. Let's quickly look at the update. You know this already, that if I say this, if I say update employees, and I say, for example, set salary equal to salary times 1.1 as an example, and I spelled salary wrong. You should know by now what that will do is that will give every one of our employees a 10% raise. All right. So you typically would not want to do that. All right. But what I want to do is I'm going to just do it like this, where employee ID is greater than 1,000. That should give a 10% raise to me and to Jane Doe if it takes this. So let's see. It says 2 rows affected. That's good. All right. So let's select star from employees, run it. And my salary is now 61,110.50, and Jane Doe's is now 48,888.40. So that worked. All right. Long story short, when you do an update, virtually 100% of the time, all right, virtually 100% of the time, you're going to have a where clause in there. Now let's talk about, where we wouldn't want to have a where clause, where we would want to update everything that's in here. What if we put in bad data and the year on all of these? Let's say that the company didn't even exist. This company didn't even exist till the year 2000. And since that's the case, all these people that were right here could not have been hired. All right, because the company didn't exist. Then we might want to go back in and forget it. Just let's pretend I'm not in here and Jane Doe is not in here. Then we might want to go and add years to every employee. But those cases where you do that are literally few and far between. All right. And the other thing, just so you know about this, is if I want to say this, so I'm going to say update employees, set, let's say that Jane, we had her name wrong. So we're going to say set first name equal Janet, comma, last name equal, so she's now Janet Jones, we're going to say. All right, and we'll even do her salary. So again, we're going to give her another raise. So salary equals salary times 1.25. Now, if I run the query now, everybody is going to be named Janet Jones, and they're all going to get a 25% pay bump. We don't want that. All right, but her ID, which is what we should always be using in here, is 1103. So where employee ID equals 1103. But I'm just showing you here that it is totally legit to come in and update multiple employee or multiple fields for the same employee in the same query. All right, one row affected, good. So let's just do this. Select star from employees, where employee ID is equal to 1103. And you'll notice she's now Janet Jones. All right, it does not look like the salary worked though. I thought that, oh, no, she was making 48,888. So she's now at 6110. All right, and where this is important, there's actually a good example on your screen right now. Where this is important is possibly when you hired somebody, you didn't know what their phone number was. But let's say that you require that all employees have a phone number, or maybe a phone number wasn't given to Janet Jones when she was hired, or Jane Doe, whatever. So you can go back and you can fix it at a later time. All right, so I've left the company, so you can delete from employees. All right, again, if I run this, the employees table is now empty. But I'm going to say where ID, and I don't remember what my employee ID was. We'll remove both of them, is greater than 1100. All right, so that should remove me and Janet Jones. Oh, one row affected. Okay, maybe it would just removed her. That probably should have been greater than or equal to, but let's see if she's gone. So select star from employees. And yeah, I'm still in there because I was 1100. So we'll delete from employees. Where employee ID equals 1100. I'll run the query again. One row was affected. And if I do a select star from employees, what you'll notice is I'm no longer in there. Okay, not a big thing, but select does work in a manner that's very similar to the way that update works. All right. Okay. So we've talked about 4 or 5 different things here. What if we wanted to create a new table? All right, we can do that in here. So how would we do that? All right, let's create a new table. Let's make it real simple. All right, let's say that now all employees are required to take some kind of a training course. So we're going to create a table here. And we can, again, you can see they're both keywords, and we'll just call it courses. All right, then we need a parenthesized list. And in the list, what we need in here, for lack of better words, all right, is we need, let's say we have a course ID. We'll make that an int. All right. And we'll make it our primary key. Notice that's all being lit up. All right. You say, well, what about the identity? We're going to get into that after the break. All right. So course ID, and then let's put in, I don't know, course name. And we'll say that's a varchar 50. And we'll say that that cannot be null. Okay. So that's it. We're going to keep it real simple. It has 2 fields in it, a course ID and a course name. Execute, command completed. If I refresh here and I look at my tables, I should now have a table in here called courses, and you can see I do. It's empty, all right, but I do have that in here. And we could fill it up. I'm not going to put anything in it. All right. But now let's say that we decided you know what, when we did this, we screwed up. Okay. And not only should we have had a course ID like we have in a course name, but we also want to have a course length, and we don't have that in there. The time to go and make changes to a table is before you put data in it. So if you were working on something for somebody, as an example, you want to make sure that you talk with them and, am I missing anything? It's important that you talk with people you're working with, and it's important that you look at any documentation that exists. But what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to type in alter table, and I need the name of the table, which was courses. All right. And what I want to do is I want to add a new column. So I'm going to say add new column. In fact, I don't even think I say that. I just think I say add followed by that name. So that would be course length. All right. And let's see. We'll put in there, it'll be a number of days. All right. So I'll just say int. Now, by default, it's going to go at the end. So we'll have course ID, then course name. What if I wanted the course length before the course name? All right. I could do that then, and I think it would work to just say after course ID. I think that'll work. All right. Maybe it won't. We'll see. Incorrect syntax near after. Well, I'm doing that off the top of my head, so I'm just going to put it like this. See if it takes this. All right. Now I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to go back here to my table design, and you'll notice that course length is in there. All right. And it will allow nulls. Oh, geez, I really wanted it to allow not to allow nulls. All right. So let's see if we can do that. All right. So again, I want to alter the table. Courses. And I want to modify the column definition. All right. So I want to modify, what did we call that? I think it was course length. All right. And it was an int, but I wanted to not allow nulls. So not null. See if this one works. Incorrect syntax near modify. Alter table courses. Modify course length. Oh, doggone it. It might be set and it might be something else. I'm not sure. Yeah, it doesn't like something in here, but you can do it. All right. I'm trying to do a couple of these off the top of my head, and I'm not doing a good job. All right. So let's see if we can drop that column. Okay. So we're going to alter the table courses. Okay. And I'm going to try to drop the column. All right. And I think it's drop column, but we're going to find out right now. Drop column course length. That completed successfully. So again, I will refresh, go back, and it should now have two columns in it again like it did before. Well, it's still showing in here. Even though we refreshed, it's still showing in here. All right. But it actually really and truly should be gone. You can drop multiple columns at the same time. You can do a lot of different kinds of work with this stuff. If we don't want the table itself anymore, as you probably guess, we can just use a drop table command. Now, I want to show you where this can be problematic. So I'm going to drop table courses. Okay, not a problem. It should work. Boom, it's gone. I refresh. Let's close this and refresh. And see, I don't know if it'll show it here or not, but it shouldn't, but it still might. Okay, courses is gone. What if I try dropping it again? Okay, you cannot drop the table courses because it does not exist, or you do not have permission. So typically when you drop a table like this, you say if exists. And you notice now it says that the command completed successfully. It did complete successfully. There just was nothing to drop. All right. But believe it or not, that actually did work. All right. Before I mentioned to you, all right, this is drop table, but if for example, if we wanted to remove all of the everything, all the records in our employee table, we could say delete from employees. I'm not going to do that, but if we did that, it would delete everything. Should make sense. The problem is if you've got a really, really, really big table that has thousands of records in it or more, using delete can be very, very, very slow. All right. So what you can do if you've got a really big table is instead of saying delete from employees, you can say truncate table employees. And that is designed to work a lot faster. All right. Again, that's not a big thing, but just so you know that. Just a couple more things and then we're going to take a break. All right. You've already know this, but if I go in here and, for example, I don't want to keep this, you know how we can set this as a primary key. You've already seen that. We right mouse clicked on it and chose rather, insert primary key. I could remove it from there now if I wanted to. You've also seen how you can go in there, and when we created that new courses table, we put in the word primary key. All right. If you decide that if I'm going to create a new table, so let's just say that I'm going to do that again. All right, so I'm going to do a new query and I'm going to create table junk. All right. And I want to put in two fields here and have it be a concatenated primary key. So I'm going to say junk ID int and then junk member one int. Don't ask me, I'm making this up. Junk member two. I'm going to keep it simple. number 2, and we'll say that's a varchar of size 50. What I'm showing you here is if I want a concatenated primary key, I can come in here and say, now I can say primary key, and I can say junk ID, junk member 1. The point is, if I've got a concatenated primary key like this, that's got more than one field in it, I can't just say primary key up here and then say it again here. You're not allowed to do that. You should always set a primary key, always set a primary key when you create the table. You don't want to go back and do it again later. It's not that you can't do it, but it would be very poor programming practice to do that. All right. We've talked a little bit about foreign keys. All right. But you can also go in and add a foreign key. I'm not going to show you that now. I am going to show you it after the break. All right. Remember, there's also something called a unique key. I don't think those are used that often, but they can be used. All right. Key is it something that technically could have been a primary key because it's unique, but you chose not to make it a primary key. But you want to verify or guarantee that it is always going to be unique. All right. Okay. A couple more things. Like I said, then we're taking our break. All righty. There is something that's called a constraint. Okay. So we could come in here. Let me add another field here. So I'm going to say junk member 3, and I'm going to make that an int. All right. And then after that, I can say check. Notice it's a keyword. And I can say something like junk member 3 greater than or equal to 100. What that means is after I do this, if I try to put in a value for that is less than 100, I'm going to get an error message. All right. So you can set keys up like that. All right. Check constraints, I should say, up like that when you create this. All right. One last thing, and we've talked about it already, and we are taking our break, and that is the fact that you can come in when you set up a table. All right. And I could come in here, for example, on any of these, even on this one, it wouldn't make sense. By default, when you create this, so let's just get rid of this. And we're going to say this is our primary key. All right. But if I wanted to make sure all of these had values in them, I could just add not null to each one of these. And that's exactly what it will do. If I try to leave any of them blank, let's just get rid of this, put not null here too. So now when I do this, I have to put in 4 different values. I don't have any choice. I have to do that. And I didn't show this, but when I create the table, that the whole thing has to be within parentheses. Okay. All right. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you. So what we're going to do after the break is I'm going to create a C# application for you. All right. And when we do that, we're going to tie it to a different database. We could tie it to this one, but we're going to tie it to another one. And it's the one I gave you a copy of this morning. I'll show you that in just a bit. All right. It is 9:09. Let's take a break until 9:20 and we'll pick it up then. be right back. All right, it's 9:20, so I'm going to start back up. What I'm going to do is I've just created a new folder called SQLTester, and I've also created a GitHub repo by that name. So if you would rather just watch, totally fine. But I've got out of the database. Um, what I do not like to do, there is a way that you can have the database open both in SMMS and in your program at the same time. I don't like to do that because it's bouncing back and forth can cause problems. Sometimes when you go into your program, it'll kick you out of SMMS. All right, just so you know that. But I'm going to start up a new Visual Studio session, and I'm going to create a new project. Now with this one, I good, bad, and different doesn't matter. But for the rest of the semester, the stuff that I create, I am going to create it without the .NET framework. So it's a little bit more work, but the reason for that is when we get into the next chapter, in chapter 20, it's going to expect that we have a certain version that we're using of C#. And remember, when I do it this way, I'm using version 4.7.2. And when I do it this way, I'm using version 8. So I've got the latest and greatest type of stuff. So I'm going to go here, Windows Forms app, and I'm going to call it, everything is just going to be the same thing. So SQLTester, it's going to be it's going to have a solution by that name. All right. And we are going to put it into a folder that is also called SQLTester. All right. So let's just do it this way. The project name, SQLTester project. And I'll just leave the solution as SQLTester. I could put the word solution in there. I'm not going to. So I have now a project named SQLTester project that's in a folder on my desktop called SQLTester, and the solution name is also SQLTester. I'm going to click next. And in here, this is where it's important. We talked about this earlier. I want to be able to put in here version 8, .NET 8, long-term support, and click create. Now you've seen this before. There's a little more work to doing it this way. It takes a little longer for the form to come up, and it doesn't automatically, when I put in my buttons, it doesn't automatically set up stuff for me, etc. I got to live with that. All right. So I'm going to start creating this right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of my form. I'm going to rename it to FRM SQL Tester. All right. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change my text and just make it SQLTester. All right, I'm going to change my background color. And I think I'm going to use that kind of aqua color right there. All right, now I've set up some sizes that I just want things to be. All right, and I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but this is how I'm setting it up. For instance, my form, I'm going to give it a size. All right, and that will be 1223 by 768. So you can see it's now a lot bigger. All right, the first thing I'm going to put in here is a control we have not dealt with, and it's actually the subject of chapter 23. So why am I showing it to you now? Because it's going to help as far as us being able to write a very simple program that's going to allow us to do a heck of a lot. All right, so I want to bring up my toolbox here. I don't need it to be that wide. I'll put it up there. That's good. I can see everything now. And I'm going to put this in. Now, you may or may not know this, but when I have all Windows Forms controls, it shows me every control there is. Makes sense, probably. But if you look down here, you'll notice there's common controls. And if I go down far enough, there's one that says data. And there's a data grid view. It's also in here. It's there. But if I want to do things based on what I'm working on, for instance, if I want just my menu controls, there they are. All right. If I want my different container controls like group boxes, etc., there they are. All right. So it doesn't matter where if I do it here or do it up there, but I'll just grab it from here. So there's my data grid view. All right. It looks kind of funky, and we're going to talk about different things with it in just a bit. All right. And there's not a lot of universal agreement on even how to name this, but I use mine. I do a DGV for data grid view. So I'm going to call this DGV results. All right. And I'm going to place it so the location is going to be set at 5436, which is going to move it over. There you go. And the size of it is going to be pretty big. All right. So my size on here is going to be 1104 by 425. There it is. All right. So it's going to take up a lot of room on here. This is going to show me the results of my queries. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a text box. All right. And that text box is going to go down here. And the first thing I want to do is make it multi-line. This is where I'm going to type in my query. All right. So it's now multi-line. So I'm just going to stretch it out for now, like to there and maybe to there. All right. And I'm going to call this kind of what it is, just txt query. All right. And it's going to go at 54,480 is going to be the location, which is pretty close to where I had it. All right. And the size of it is going to be 831 by 224. All right. So again, you can see exactly, hopefully at least, how this is coming together. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 3 buttons. And I'll just put in one, size it, etc., and then copy it twice. So this first one is going to be where we want to execute our query. So I'm just going to call this btn execute query. All right, and I'll just put on there for my text, I'll just put execute on there. I think that's good enough. Ampersand EXECUTE. So there's execute. All right, this is going to be at 941,480 for my location. All right, and the size of it is going to be 217,45. All right, so now the button has been sized. So now I can come in and I can copy it a couple times. All right, so we'll put one there. Oops, not that. And we'll put one there. All right, they're going to be moved in just a second anyway. This next one is going to be my clear button. So it'll be btn clear. we've gone through this many, many times already. All right. We'll have here ampersand C ampersand LEAR. So that's clear. And that is going to be at 941,587. Don't worry about that. We'll pull the other one down further. Okay. And the size will be the same. And this last one that's right here, this one is going to be our exit button. All right. You've seen this kind of countless times already. So, all right. And this one will be at 941. 659, so it's already there, and the size is right. All right, and I'm going to add 2 labels. All right, the first one is going to show me the number of records that were returned, and that's going to vary based on the query, of course. All right, so I'm going to put that one. We'll grab this first one, just put it right here. All right, and again, this will be called, you call it whatever you want, but I called mine LBL num num records. All right. And it's going to be at location. I'm going to make this darker. All right. And it will be at location 941,540. All right. And the size of it will be 36 by 44. Whoops, try that again. Oh, of course, I've got to set my auto size to false. All right. So 36 by 44. Now it looks like it's running right into that. Don't worry about that. And we're going to put a number in there to start with. We're going to assume 0. All right. We're going to fix all this in just a second, so don't worry about it. One more label. Might as well just copy this one over. And we'll put that one over here. And this is going to be the number, and this is just going to basically say rows returned. All right. So this one I called LBL title. All right. And it will have text in it in just a second. The location for this one will be 1001 by 551. All right. That looks a little funky, so it looks like I better move that one down a little bit. Okay. And let's move that up. That looks better, I think. All right. And the size will be 157 by 29. Okay. I'm going to make this one a little smaller like that too, and move these down just a little bit. That's pretty good. All right. Now this, I don't want this to be size 36 or size 20 like we usually do. I'm going to leave the size in here about 12 because there's going to be a lot of records, at least possibly there's going to be a lot of records that we're going to put in there. And if I make it, in fact, it looks like it's not even letting me play with the font size in there. But in here, this query, I'm going to make this 20 like I usually do for the font size. $20 bold and Arial, as we've always been doing. So that's done. Same thing with the buttons. All right, I guess I should have just done them like that, but that's okay. So again, 20 bold Arial. Okay, looking a little better. I got to fix that exit thing, you can see. And in here, I'm going to have this one is going to be big. All right. In other words, I don't even know if 20 is going to be big enough. So let's see if we make it 24 and bold and Arial. Yeah, we can make this a little bigger. There we go. All right. And we'll do the same thing here. All right. And What this is going to say then, all right, is rows returned. Okay. We could put whatever we wanted in here, but that's what I put in. So let me put the text in first. That's here. So rows returned. All right. And I think I'll be able to make it the same size as this one, but I'm not positive. So let's start by making it 20 like we usually do. And as you can see, all right, make that a little wider there. Okay, not great, but that's okay. In fact, let's make it a little smaller. I'll make it 18 so I can line stuff up. All righty. There we go. All right, not great, but it'll work. All right, let's do a Control A to highlight everything. Let's lock this into place. Let's fix that exit where it says that. So it's E ampersand XIT. All right. We will make the execute button our accept button. We will make the clear button our cancel button. All right. I will center it on the screen. And then finally, now when our tab order, this will be 0 because we do want to be able to type in here. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This field right here is basically going to be a read-only field. So is this. So is this. Now, when I say read-only, we're going to set this. All right, we're going to set that field, but we're not going to be able to do anything with it. So let's go in and set the tab order. So view tab order, and again, it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's set. So view tab order, and let's just save it. All right. Now, all I'm going to do right now is just view the code. There's nothing in there yet, but let's run it. All right, it is centered and it looks okay. It's not the best looking interface you've ever seen, but it definitely will work. All right. Now, unfortunately, because I was too stupid to remember to do this, I'm going to go back to an older program. Remember, we have to go back in. When we double click, it's not automatically going to add the private void, BTN exit underscore click, etc. stuff. So I've got to go grab that from an older program. So give me a second here. Let's see. I think that would have something in it. So we want something like that. Okay. Close that. Okay. And let's go back to here and let's bring in our buttons. So first our execute. So again, I want that to be BTN execute. All right. And did I not call it execute? I think I called it execute query. All right, so let's see. I don't know why it doesn't like that, but it doesn't. So we'll fix it. There we go. So there's the first one. Let's just copy this down twice. All right, the second one button. And the last one will be our exit button. Come on. All right. Whoops. All right, so we've got all of that stuff, so to speak, is in there. Okay. And as we oftentimes do, so we built our interface, we positioned everything where we wanted it to be positioned. All right. So now we can go in and start writing our code. All right. Well, let's start with exit. And I still probably have this in here someplace. Yep, there's exit program or not. And there's our show error message, which we may end up needing. I don't know. All right, so I'm going to bring that in. So we've got that. Looks like I'm missing here a curly. And that one should be moved over. So should that one. All right. So let's see. Message box, okay. What the heck happened there? But somehow I lost part of it. So let's get that back. Yep, I lost that line there. All right, so that's all done. And when we look at this, when we clear, we want to clear this and clear this. We want to set that back to 0. And let's see, I'm trying to figure out what else we want to do. For now, that'll be good. All right, we may add something later. All right, but for our clear, which is again right here. All right, so for now, I'm going to say txt query dot text is equal to nothing. All right, and we'll say LBL num records. Is that what we called it? It's this one right here. LBL num records. Okay, so LBL num records dot text. We want to set that back so it's equal to just the number 0 again. Remember, that's text, so we do it like that. All right. We can put the focus to txt query dot focus. Now we're going to add something to this later, but for now at least, let's just see if this works. All right. So we're going to come in here. I'm just going to throw some junk in here. I don't care about centering or anything else. And I can't change that, but let's clear. All right. And it looks, as far as I can tell, it looks like it's going to work. Exit doesn't look like it's synced up. So something's wrong with exit. So ETN exit. Right. This is what I don't like about working with this. And I don't know. Let's just do a file save all. Maybe I should have done that first and maybe that would have helped. I don't know. So I got to execute query. I've got clear and I've got exit, but exit isn't right now, at least doesn't seem to be working. Okay. It's weird because the clear is working. Let's see if the execute is working. So I'll just put in here a message box dot show hit the execute button. So that's working. Why isn't this working? I don't know. BTN exit. Well, I'll have to try to fix that later, but I will have a working version of this. You don't have to worry about that. All right. If nothing else, I'll take the version I already have and we'll work on that. So again, the idea behind this program right here, the idea behind it is what we want to do is we want to be able to come in here and enter in a query. So a select star from whatever. Click this and have the results come up in here. Also set it up so if we make a mistake in the query, we get a message that lets us know what the mistake is. But if we put in a valid query, not only do we get the results, but it tells us how many rows were returned. All right. Now, the only thing I'm looking at here, this is okay, but if we have like 1,000 rows returned or something like that, it's gonna be big enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just actually change this around just a little bit here. So I'm gonna unlock this. I'm gonna move this over, which means I'm going to move this over, and I'm gonna move these over as well. All right, a lot bigger these buttons than they need to be, and you know that, but that's fine. So now I can move this over here, and I can make this wider. All right. Is that great? No, but it works. It's functional. Now, one more thing, I want to take that number in that's in there, and I want to align it so it's aligned middle right. There we go. All right, now let's lock the interface back up again. And I want to try doing one last thing. So execute appeared to be working. There you can see it does. Execute query. Clear appeared to be working. Well, that's showing execute query as well. But exit wasn't doing diddly. So that one I'll have to figure out because I don't know what the problem is. That's not a big thing. Now, remember that when the program begins, we call form load. I want to say that again. When the program begins, form load basically is what's going to run it. So that's the default for a form. So if I double click on this, all right, it doesn't show that, but it'll show form load. All right, I got to see now if I can go back to that other program that I had. I have a form load. It's not. All right, let's go back here again to this and to that card solution, I think it was. Bring up our, try this. Form load there. There we go. Rid of that. I think I can get rid of that now too. All right. So down at, I'll put it down under the other buttons. In fact, let's do it right at the top. Okay. So this will be private form void FRM, not card store, of course, but it'll be FRM SQL tester. All right. Dot load. Okay, there's that. So when this loads, the first thing that I want to do is I want to create what's called a connection string. All right. Now, I'm not going to do it right away, but I just want to show you this. I want to tell you what we're going to do here. We want to create a connection string. What that is going to do is that's going to open up the communication between my program and the database, which we're about to create in just a couple minutes. All right. That's a connection. Okay. And then that is basically called a connection string. Okay. And why, I'll show you everything that's going to be in there in just a bit. Then we have to create actually what's called an SQL connection that's based on that connection string. Finally, we have to open the connection. So there's three things we want to do in here. All right. But what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to see if I can leave this open. So I'm going to do a save all right here, and I'm just going to minimize that so you don't see it. And I'm going to bring back up my SQL Server Management Studio again. Okay. Now, what I sent to you this morning were several files. Okay. And I want to go through some of them with you right now. You'll notice I do not, because I removed it. I do not have a database in here that's called sales orders. That's what we're going to be working with. But I want to show you what's in sales orders. All right, that's what I want to show you. So the first thing I'm going to show you here, if I can find it. Of course I can't, but we will. I know right where it is. And that is, it's here and here. This right here, this is what our database looks like. All right, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables in it. Whoops, a little smaller. We've got a customers table, an employees table, an orders table, an orders detail table, a categories table, a products table, a product vendors table, and a vendors table. Now, I'm not going to go over every relationship in here, but you can see there are one-to-many relationships between several of the tables. Just looking at one of them, there is a one-to-many relationship between customers and orders. That means that every one customer can have 0, 1, or more orders. That should make sense to everybody. All right. But this is a schematic of what our database looks like. All right. Just so you know that. Okay. All right. So with that said, what I sent you this morning was this folder. And that folder, I don't think we're probably going to get into images, but I'm not even going to lie to you. I'll tell you this right now. He may have changed it. I don't know. Mr. Gudmested is teaching the AWD1100 class this summer. And we actually use this database for our tests. And I added these images. I don't know if he's still going to do this, if he's going to write new tests. I don't have a clue. All right. But we'll see if we can get into images ourselves this semester, but we may not be able to. All right. Okay, so there are 9 files here. The first one I want to open here is called 00 schema, sales order schema. So this is what each one of these tables is going to look like. Now, I think that in the picture, they called it cust instead of customer. So I made it a little bit bigger. All right. And you can see how all these are set up. I just want to go through them quickly. The categories table, notice every one of these tables has an ID. Category ID, customer ID, employee ID, vendor ID, product ID. There's 2 IDs here, which we'll go over in a minute. Order ID. There's 2 IDs here, which we'll go over in a minute. All right. But they all have a primary key. Okay. And notice if I just want it to be a straight identity, I want it to start with 1 and I want it to increase or increment by 1. That's how I can do it. So this will create a brand new table called categories. I believe we'll have like 6 categories when we get done. All right. And category ID will be our primary key. You'll notice these are nvarchar. Basically, varchar and nvarchar are the same. So don't worry about that. All right. So the description can be up to 75 letters. Then we have customers. Each customer has an ID, a first name, a last name, an address, city, state, zip, an area code, and a phone number. Now, what I don't like about this one, and I should have changed it, I didn't, and we're going to just keep it the way it is. I should have combined that into one field and made it all a varchar or an int. I took this out of a book that I used about 15 years ago. Why they put that in as a small int for the area code and an nvarchar for the phone number, I don't have a clue, but they did. All right. Each employee, very similar, has an ID, a first name, a last name, a street address, a city, a state, a zip, an area code, and a phone number. So again, here's an example where we could have done one of those union queries and union our customers with our employees if we wanted to do that. We would not include the IDs. The IDs for our customers start at 1,000 and get incremented by 1 each time. Our IDs for our employees start at 701 and go up by 1 each time. Then we've got vendors. All right. Then we have products. Then we have product vendors. This is one of those or jump tables. This is a combination of the products table and the vendors table, which is up here someplace. So notice that products table has product ID as the key, and vendors has vendor ID as the key. So product vendors has a concatenated primary key of product ID and vendor ID. All right, you'll notice that some of these say max. Again, I just took this out of the book. All right, I mean, that's kind of silly. That I think that's 32,767. We're not going to have that anyway. All right, this is an old, I wish I'd have found my newer copy of this, but this is an old copy. We're just going to work with this one. It'll be just fine. Then we've got orders and order details. And you'll notice order details, again, it's a concatenated primary key. It's going to be a join table between orders and products. Then we come in and we add a whole bunch of indexes. Then we've got a bunch of alter table commands that are allowing us to create a bunch of foreign keys. So they're all set up. So even if you use the copy that I'm going to put out on GitHub, you must, if you want to use it with this database, you must put in this database here. All right. So what I'm going to do is in my SQL Server Management Studio, I'm going to right mouse click on databases, choose new database. I would suggest you calling it the same thing as me, and that is sales orders, one word, run together, sales orders, just like that, capital S for sales, capital O for orders, and then just click OK. Now, when I come back and refresh, that should be in there, and you can see that it's there. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on the database, and I'm going to choose new query, and I'm going to bring in from the schema each table one at a time. So I'm going to start by creating my categories table and run it. There shouldn't be any problems with any of these. So we've got a categories table in there now, and I'll refresh. Next, I'm going to bring in the next file, which are the next schema, which is customers. The semicolons at the end here are optional, but I've got them in there, so I'm going to leave them there. So there's my second table. And again, I am refreshing. All right, then I want to do my third table, which is employees. And refresh again. All right. Then I'm going to do the next table here, which is vendors. Do them in this order too, because some of them depend on other things that are in here. So that worked. Again, refresh. Products. Product vendors. Orders, and then order details. Should have all my now, and I'm going to highlight all of the indexes, put those in. Remember, indexes just make queries or help queries to run faster. All right, I am putting in multiple ones, but that should work okay. Oh, cannot find the object customers because it does not exist. Well, let's look. Did I skip the customers table? I could have. So let's look in here under tables. Does not look like I copied in the customers table. So let's get rid of all these. Hopefully that's not going to screw anything up. It's very, very stupid on my part, but that's okay. Let's go back and find customers. Cannot find the object customers because it does not exist or you do not have permission. Don't know why it would do that. That might have been from before. I don't know. So let's refresh and see if I have customers now. No. So what the heck is wrong with that? View table customers. All right, now I've got it. If I refresh, I should have a customers table in here now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all 8 tables are in. Sorry about that. If that shows you some of the problems you can get if you don't put it in, put them in the right order. If you just follow the order I gave you in here, you should be fine. So let's come in now and put in those indexes. I should not get any errors now. I did before, as you saw. Now, I might get errors because the other indexes might have actually worked. I don't know if they did or not. So if I get errors saying that it's a duplicate index, again, if you do it in the right order, you won't get those. So, no, they all worked. Okay, good. And finally, let's go in and put in the alter table, which is going to add all of our foreign keys. And if you're still confused, or if you're at all confused with the whole subject in there of foreign keys, I would have you just go back. Oops, not to there. Go back to the picture that I showed you. All right. Wherever the heck it was. Where are you? There. The foreign keys are, for example, we took customer ID and we put it in here. So we took the parent table, so to speak, and we put it into the child. We did the same thing with employee ID. So customer ID is not really needed in the orders table because it's not part of orders, but it's added so that we're able to link up customers and orders. Same thing with employees and orders. Okay. All right. So we've got all those in there too. I think we just put these alter tables in. I think we ran that. All right. So let's start putting in our data. So I can close this schema. You'll notice, taking it from the top, we only have 4 or 6 different categories. All right, this is for a mythical bike shop. We've got accessories, we've got bikes, we've got clothing, we've got components, car racks, and wheels. This should go in without a hitch, I would think, without any problem. All right, and let's run it. Okay, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records affected, so that means they all worked. We could run this now just to be sure and come in and type in select star from categories. And I should get the 6 categories back, and there they are. All right, so that's good. Still not sure why I'm getting errors like that, the underscores, but we are. All right, so that's the first one. Next, we've got our customers. And again, we've got somewhere, I think it's 28 customers. Okay. All right. And you can look at that yourselves. If I wanted to be sure on that, of course, I could do a select count star from customers, and it'll show us 27 there are. Okay. All right. So we've got 2 tables worth of data in here now. Oh, let's just cancel that. Let's go to the third one. All right. So number 3 here, employees. I thought there were 8 employees. Again, that could be wrong. I don't remember. And let's run that. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there's 8, like I said. Okay. So we've got those. Again, I should really be refreshing every time. It's just a good idea to do that. All right. Next, the next one that we have in here, there we go, are the vendors. And I don't remember how many vendors we have. So let's see, we have 10 vendors. Okay. Next, we have products, and there's, I think, 40 some products. They're either 36 or 48, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but we'll check it in a minute. Forty products. Okay. All right, let's finish this up. In fact, before I finish this up, let's refresh the database again. Now let's finish this up. All right. So next are product vendors. So this is basically as it says, okay, the vendor that's going to support that particular product. And there's a bunch of them in there too. All product vendors. Space there. No underline. There we go. So there's 90 of those. Okay. Just about finished. And we've got orders. There's quite a few of these, and the order details are even bigger. I think there's 944 orders and like 3,675 order details. It's something like that. So it's actually big enough that is a fairly representative database. But you'll notice that even with this, okay, as soon as I click, boom, it's already filled. So if I do my select account star from orders, 937 orders. Okay, let's put in the last one, which is our order details. Okay, and again, already filled. Let's refresh this and let's do a select count star from order details. And it says that we have 3,951. Okay, so we have all of our data in there. Okay, and as you can see, we have 8 tables, categories, customers, employees, order details, orders, products, product vendors, and vendors. We've put in those 8 tables and we've populated them as well. All right. I don't think I'm going to need SMMS anymore. We'll find out momentarily if I do. All right. So as mentioned to you previously, in here in the load event, I want to establish the connection to the database. So I'm just going to put a comment in here that says establish connection to database. All right. And I'm going to put var in here. When you put var in, as opposed to int or char or string or whatever, you're letting the system figure out the type of the data type. And this is a database data type, so we let the system figure it out. This is going to be a connection string, so I'm going to call it constring. Nothing magical about that name. If you wanted to call it something different, you could. Okay. Now I'm going to put this whole thing in. I'm going to put in everything here. Okay. And after I get it put in, I'll explain what all of it means. So I'm just going to type in about 4 or 5 lines of code here. I want to put in the entire load event, all right, which is going to be 3 lines of code, but I'm going to put a comment in for each line of code that I'm putting in, and then we'll go back and we'll go over them. All right. It works best if you put it on 1 line. All right. So it's going to be pretty long. Again, we'll go over this in just a moment. I'm getting an error here. That error will be fixed in just a moment. All right. All right. Same thing here. Don't worry. I promise you, these will be fixed in a second. What I want to do though is I want to explain to you what's happening here. All right. And I am going to open back up SQL Server Management Studio so you can see where I got this thing from here. All right. So when I open this back up and I come in here, okay, you may or may not have noticed, but under server name, it says local DB MS SQL local DB right there. Hopefully you can read that. It's in blue, but if I copy it and if I put it in here where you can read it nice and big, and I believe at least it's case insensitive. So there it is. Local DB MS SQL local DB. In other words, that's saying that I'm using my local machine as the server. Yours should be the same thing. Should be. All right. So where I've got all that, let me get rid of this. And now it'll be the same caseness. Okay. So that's the data source. This is specifying to the system where our server is. So if we were working, let's say, for Amazon, All right, that'd be neat. But let's say we're working for Amazon and we've got a name of a server we're hooking to. It wouldn't be this. That server name would go there. All right. Also, we've got an @ sign at the beginning, so we don't have to put // We can put in just one slash. So this is the name of our server. Then after that, we put in the name of our database. That's our initial catalog. Now, if you put that in, if we had not created sales orders yet, if we had not created that database and we go in to run the program, we're going to get an error message because it's going to be looking for a database that doesn't exist. So typically, again, you would create the database first. Last thing, Windows provides some extra security with this SSPI. You can look it up yourselves if you care. You'll notice that this entire thing is in a double quote there, and a double quote ends there. Put it on one line. Don't separate it over multiple lines. There are ways of doing that, but I've had problems trying to do that in the past. Again, that is what is referred to as our connection string. All right. This is, again, as the comment says, this is establishing a connection. Now our program is going to be connected to this database. Remember yesterday we did HR. If we change this from sales orders to HR, we could run those queries we ran yesterday. All right. And if you had other databases, you could just change that. All right. So that's the first thing. Then we have to create an actual SQL connection based on this. We have to put some stuff at the top of the program. That's why I'm getting errors here. So con right here, which we're going to define up at the top of the program. All right. That's going to be our new connection, our new SQL connection based on that string that we just came up with. Then we open it. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this stuff at the top of the program. All right. So I'm going to put it right underneath this initialize component. I could put it above it, but I'm going to put it here. And it's only a few lines of code. I want to say this. It's only a few lines of code, but let me put them in. All right. And after I do, the comments that go with these are pretty extensive. There's a lot of comments. So I will copy the comments in. So I want to put in here SQL connection con, like that. All right. SQL connection con. Now I'm getting this and it says, hey, I don't know what to do with this. It says, do you want to generate this? Do you want to generate that? Do you want to generate this? No, we don't want to do any of that. All right. And what hopefully is going to happen in just a couple minutes is this is going to all play its way out. All right. So like I said, if you just bear with me for a second. So we've got SQL connection con. All right. Then we're going to have SQL command, and we can call this whatever we want. And I called mine query command. All right. And again, are going to get fleshed out in just a minute. SQL data adapter. We'll call that query adapter. We're going to go over what every bit of these mean. All right. And I think there's one more line. And that'll be data table. We'll just call that table. All right. Notice that's the only one right now that didn't give us any errors. Well, why are we getting these errors? Right now, we've got using system.data. Okay, that's fine. Let's add a couple more usings in here. Probably don't need this, but let's add a using system. All right. Let's add, we always put this in, but we have to manually add that here, and that is system.windows.forms. All right. And I'm going to also add using system.data.sql client. All right. And hopefully these are going to start going away in just a couple minutes. All right. But file, save all. So let's look in here. It says this could not be found in the namespace. All right. It says this has been forwarded. Consider adding a reference to that assembly. I shouldn't have to add anything. Not sure what the problem in here is. All right. But I want to explain to you. Let me put in the comments. I want to explain it to you. We'll take another break, and I'm going to look during the break and see if I can figure out why the heck this isn't. I'm getting these errors here. Okay. So I do have, like I said, multiple comment lines here. Close that. And here they are. So here will be the first one. All right. You can see there's a lot of comments. Then we're going to do another one here. All right, that's our second one. Then we're going to do another one here. And finally, we're going to do another one right here. Like I said, we're going to go over these and then we're going to take another break. All right, so let's take this from the top. Don't, like I said, please don't worry about the errors that are in here. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to fix those during the break. Okay. It says the type name SQL data connection could not be found. All right, this type has been forwarded to an assembly, etc. Consider adding a reference to that assembly. Okay, we'll look at that in a bit. But everything that I've added in here now is commented. So I've got a URL for each one of these that you can go to. So if you want to find out more about SQL connection, you can go to that URL. I don't want to read to you, but as I told you before, this is representing the connection. So this is allowing our database to talk with our program. Notice as it says in here, the connection is used with the data adapter, which is down below, and SQL command, and that this is the way that we're hooking up to our SQL Server database. If you use other databases, you might do it a little bit differently. All right. And really, Microsoft supports not just SQL Server, which of course it works the best with. All right. So yeah, it supports that, but it also supports MySQL. It supports Oracle. It supports Access. It supports a lot of other things as well. All right. We're going to be using something in here that's called OLEDB connection. All right. Or we can use something with that. That is like older technology, and it stands for Object Linking and Embedding Database Connection. That's all you need to, you don't even need to worry about it. All right. So this will be our connection. When an instance of a command is created, the read-write properties are set to their initial values. This is going to correspond to the command that we're going to put in here, that we're going to attempt to run against the database. All right. The adapter, if you think about what an adapter is, all right, if you've ever worked with an adapter before, typically, as an example, let's say that I've got a plug in my wall, all right, an electrical outlet in my wall, and it only supports a two-prong plug, not a three-prong, but just a two-prong plug, but I got a three-prong. Well, what do? I get an adapter, which can plug into the wall with two, but it also has a connection for three. So in other words, the data adapter, as it says, acts. All right. So when I go and bring the data in, it's kind of a go-between, for lack of better words. All right. And what's going to happen is eventually it's going to put this stuff here, as it says, into a database table. All right. And that's what this is. These names, again, table and query adapter and query command and con, they're all arbitrary. And I just mean that you can call those anything you want. I'm giving you names that are more common types of names, but of course, not the only ones that you can use. All right. So, all right, what we have to be able to do then, this is actually not going to be a real long program, just so you know. But think about what we want to do when we run this program. So if we click the execute button, a nice first thing to do when we click the execute button would be, well, we want to attempt to execute whatever we put in here, right? But we might want to make sure first that we check and make sure that there's something in there that we can actually, say if it's empty, there's no query to execute. It'd be kind of nice to let them know that nothing was entered into that particular text box. All right. Then, and we could do that in the try catch, but I didn't. But I did do a try catch then that checked, and there are different kinds of exceptions that you can get for databases. There is an SQL exception, there's other exceptions, but I just did a straight exception that basically just said invalid query, but then I printed out what the error was so you could see what it was. So you're going to see that. If we get that fixed then, and we put in here, for example, select star from categories. The 6 categories that I mentioned before should show in here, and this should say 6 rows returned. When I click clear, that should clear, that should clear, this should go back to 0, and my cursor should go back into here. All right. Hopefully everything I just said made at least some sense. All right. Now it's 10:25. I'm going to give you 15 minutes here, a little longer break than usual, because I want to go back and check my working copy and see if I forgot to do something. So let's come back at 10:40 and we'll write the rest of this program. Just so you know, tomorrow, we're going to start writing queries against this. I'm going to give you one or more worksheets, but I'm going to actually do the queries. So you will be responsible for doing them as well, either in here or doing it in SQL Server Management Studio. And then there'll be some questions based on those queries. You'll see all that stuff tomorrow. Don't worry about it, please, right now. Take a break, please. Come back in 14 minutes at 10:40. I'll see you then. Hmm. All right, it's 10:40, so I'm going to continue on. I've got good news and bad news. The good news is the fix on this is easy. The bad news is I don't remember what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the program as though everything's working. All right, tomorrow morning I'll have it fixed. If nothing else, I'll bring up the other version. I did bring up a copy of it, but I couldn't see what I did there that I didn't do here. It's probably something real simple, which is typically why I have problems with things. So when you click the button to execute the query, I'm going to call a routine that's called attempt to execute query. Of course, that routine hasn't been written yet, so I'll put it right below. All right. So the first thing I want to do is this query command that's right here. You can see it's already, the IntelliSense has already picked up some stuff. All right. I know I'm going to do that, but that's not what I want to do. Okay. But what I do want to do is this query command. This is basically going to be what I set the text box to. So I want to say that this query command itself is equal null. In other words, we don't have a query command because we're just about to go and check everything. So in other words, we're going to clear out, whatever you want to call it, the query command. All right. So that's the first thing that we want to do. Next, we want to instantiate a new query adapter. All right. So query adapter equals new SQL data adapter. All right. And we want to also instantiate or create a new data table. So I guess I could say here, I'm going to make a new SQL adapter and a new data table. So, all right, that's all fine and dandy. But you know what? Really, before I do this, and there's nothing wrong at all with what I've done. I'm just telling you, I don't care if this is showing this as an error. Don't worry about that. The thing is, though, why don't I check at the beginning and see whether or not the query box is empty? All right, so let's validate that the text box is not, if it is, there's no sense in going on. So if txt query dot text dot trim, if it's equal to nothing, we've done this how many times? Countless times almost. If that's the case, we'll do our show error message and we'll just put in there, hey, nothing was entered into the text box. And we'll put in here for a title, query text box left empty, or whatever you want to put in there. All right. And that'll be an error. Now we can't test that yet because of the other errors that are in here, but that's saying that we put nothing in here and we click this button. So we should come up and should show us that error, and we can put the focus there. There's nothing to clear because it's empty. That's what we just checked for. But we can say txt query dot focus, and we can get the heck out because there's no sense in going on. So return. Now, that should make sense to everybody. I want to say that again. That should make sense to everybody. This is the kind of validation we've done before. I could have come in and added the validator class, or we could have come in and done it another way as well. That would have been fine. I tried to take the complexity in here and keep it to a minimum. All right, so if we get down to here, there was something in the text box. So something was entered into the text box. Okay, so we clear out the query command. We instantiate or create a new SQL data adapter. All right, and we make a new data table. That's all fine. All right, but now what we want to do basically is we're going to want to try to run that query. And remember, it is possible when we come in and try to run that query, we did it wrong. For instance, what if we do this? What if what we want to say here is something like this? So we want to come in here and type in this command, select star from products. All right, but in our zest or in our hurry, we type in this. Well, you'd probably guess that's not going to work because there is nothing called select. It's select. All right, or if we spelled from wrong, or if we spell products wrong, etc. Okay, we've got errors in our query, and we want the system to be able to show us what those errors are. Okay, so we're going to put a try catch in here. And for the catch, I'm just going to catch a regular exception, period. All right, so I'm just going to catch exception EX like we show here. We're going to do our show error message again. And there was some kind of a problem, right? So show error message. All right, isn't that what we called it up here? Show error message. All right, so we want to do a show error message, and what we want to do in here, come on, what we want to do in here is just let them know. But let's do this. Let's start by saying ex.message. We'll show the system error message. All right. I'm not going to worry about showing a stack trace, etc. Like we've done that kind of thing before. I don't think a stack trace is necessary here, but we'll show the message, and then we will add to that a couple blank lines. We've done this before, and then we're going to do an ex dot get type dot to string, because that'll show us the type of error that we had. All right. Then again, we will put in a couple of blank lines. And now we'll put in our own message that just says something like, query wasn't valid. Query syntax was invalid. Something like that. If you don't like that, you don't even have to put in anything there. All right. Then finally, our title, invalid query attempted. Okay. Now, there was an error in here, and there was text. So we don't want to just put in the focus. We also want to clear out whatever was in here. So txt query dot text is equal to nothing. Give it the focus and then get the heck out. Now, we don't really even need the return there, I don't think, but it's good practice anyway. So this, in here, we're going to attempt to run the query. If it doesn't work, let's say, as another example, what if we put in this? What if we put in select star from product? There is no table called product. There's only products. So we want the system to show us what the associated error message is going to be. All right. So in this try, this is what we're going to do. First, we're going to instantiate. Whenever I say instantiate, we're creating a new one, right? So instantiate a new SQL command object. All right, so I'm going to say query command, which is something we did way up above, equals new SQL command. And where are we getting that from? We're getting it from the text box. txt query dot text. We'll even put a dot trim on here. We don't have to, but we can. All right. And we're doing that, through our connection. Okay. Now we're getting these errors. I guarantee you we'll have this fixed tomorrow. All right. And I'll explain what the problem is as soon as I figure it out. All right. Next, we want to come in and we want to use the query adapter as a bridge, so to speak, between the program and the database itself. What does that even mean? That means if you can imagine, for lack of better words, the query adapter is like a translator. And imagine that our program is written in English, but the database is in Spanish. And neither one knows, so the database doesn't know English, the program doesn't know Spanish. So we use the query adapter as an interpreter, basically, that allows the two to communicate with one another. That's exactly what's happening here. All right. When you do this, so if I come in here and type in query adapter, and I put in dot, now it's not showing me any more than this because of the errors we have up above, but there's different kinds of commands. There's a select command, there's an insert command, there's an update command, and there's a delete command. The only types of commands that we're supporting in this program is a select command. All right, so that equals query command. All right, and I'm sorry for all these errors. Like I said, we'll have them fixed, but it'd be much easier to be able to show you everything. I looked at it during the break, and like I said, it's probably something simple, which is why I can't figure it out. Next, we want to fill the data table with the output of the query adapter. And that data table we called table. So we're going to say query adapter dot, and there's a fill command. And we want to fill what? Fill up the table with it. All right. Next, we have to come in and set the data source. Set the data source for the data grid view. Remember, that data grid view is this thing. All right. So we're making sure that everything that's in here can talk to everything else that's in here. All right. So again, set the data source for the data grid view. All right. So that data grid view, DGV results dot data source equals table. And you can see the IntelliSense is picking up some of it, but it's not picking up all of it. All right, it will tomorrow. Finally, we need to set the number of records returned in the associated label. And that was LBL num records dot text. And when I do this, watch what happens. I'm going to say equal table dot rows dot count. And notice right away, the IntelliSense says, oh, you're filling up a text box. You can't throw an integer in there. You must do a toString on it. All right. So putting this in English, and again, I apologize for the errors, but taking it from the top, the first thing that we're doing in there is we are guaranteeing that there was something put into the text box from the get-go. If it was empty, we show an error message, we set the focus back to the text box, and we get out. So if we get to line 85, as it says in here, if we get to line 85, something was entered into the text box. So the way that we handle this then is we first make sure this query command that this is what's going to hold the results of what we put in here after we click this button. All right. So the first thing we want to do, nothing in it. We say null because remember when we set up this stuff, we made them vars. We just want to know. That means there's nothing in there. All right. Then we need this adapter. And remember, this adapter is going to be our bridge or our go-between between the database, which is SQL, and our program, which is C#. All right. Once we do that, what's going to happen is it's going to put the results in a data table. All right. So we've got everything we need. We've got a query command. We've got a query adapter, and we've got a data table. So now we're basically going to come in this try block, and we're going to attempt to take what we put into line 99 says attempt to take what you put into that text box. All right. And using our connection string, create a new SQL command with that and put it into query command. All right. That's fine. But we need the adapter on line 103 because, again, remember, one is talking SQL, one is talking C#. And the adapter is going to make sure that they are able to understand one another. So we set the adapter and we let it know it's a select command. And we basically we're going to put in whatever we put into that text box there. Then we fill the table. All right. And this table now is going to be what is understood by the data grid view in line 10. That says take all of our results. So take everything that we have, so to speak, all right, and put it all in there. Okay. Finally, we say copy everything that was in table, copy it to the data grid view itself. And also let us know, so this line right here is going to fill up this right here. So if there were 35 records, it'll say 35 rows returned as an example. If for some reason it doesn't work, we're going to show an error message and we're going to put the system message in there. All right. And put in the system type of error that it was. Then our own message that says query syntax was invalid and then invalid query attempted. Technically, maybe it'd even be cleaner. We don't even need this. You could just do it like that. and put in the system messages. But there was junk put into the text box, but you know what? It was junk. Since it was junk, we want to clear out that text box, which is what we're doing on line 121. All right. And then set the focus and return. All right. Now, a couple more things, because this is just about all of the code that's in here. There is a little bit more. Okay. But when we clear in here, remember, in the clear, in fact, I should have called this clear form like we usually do. So let's do that. So we'll call it clear form. And we'll write that right down below. And we'll paste that in. That's all fine now. That didn't change anything. But in here, all right, we actually, where we clear the data grid view. All right, so in other words, when we click the clear button, we don't want there to be anything in here. We want this to clear out. How do we do that? Well, notice we're not handling it now. All right, so we do it like this. We say if this dot, then the name of our data grid view, DGV results, dot data source. If it's not equal to null, meaning it's not empty, basically, well, then this dot, we set it equal to null. Otherwise, this dot DGV results dot rows dot clear. Now, I don't expect that to make sense. So what I provided in here, and I'm going to go out to it in just a minute, is a URL. Let me go grab that URL. Somewhere in here, I've got the working version. And it's right here. All right. So that literally, to my knowledge at least, that those errors. And I'm not sure what the problem is. But right now, I'm missing a reference, for lack of better words. That's what the problem is. So if I do a file save all here and I run it, it says, do you have errors? Would you like to? No. I want it to show me my errors. All right. Now it's giving me about a half dozen errors right now. And notice it says could not be found. System.data.sql. All right. It says it looked in the using statement that I had here, but that wasn't sufficient. All right. It says consider adding a reference. Well, I'm not sure what reference it is I'm supposed to add. I should have looked before class, but I thought this would work without a hitch. It didn't. All right. So as we take a look in here, then, I mean, I can look at this thing and it says non-nullable field table must contain a non-null value when exiting the constructor. Consider declaring the field as nullable. All right, that's that table field that we did right here. I'm not sure if this will fix it or make it worse, but let's see. All right, that got rid of the error, but it introduced a bunch of other ones. Now I could come in here and say equal null. All right. But it says cannot convert null literal to null reference type. Now, if I put that in, still doesn't like it. So there's some jacking around to do here. This says basically allow it to hold nulls. So I got rid of that warning. So the only thing that I'm missing right now in here is some reference. I don't remember what it was. I will figure it out by tomorrow. All right, this is the same error we're getting for all of these. All right, and I even tried to do a kludge or a fix beforehand, and I don't want to do it that way. All right, so when I come in here, let's see, this is SQL client, and it says I'm not even using that, but if I type in using system.s, there's nothing there, data.sq, it's not SQL types. I don't think that's going to fix anything. That didn't fix any error that I had in here. And I don't want to put in using statements that I don't need. So I am missing a reference. Probably what that means is I'm going to have to go in, right mouse click on my project, and go over to add and look through the references in here. There's some kind of a reference that I'm not adding right now that I'm going to have to add. All right. As soon as I add that, we should be able to run this tomorrow. So what you will get from me tomorrow or the end of the day today, all right, I will have this out there. I will have a working version of it out there. And there will be either one or two worksheets, all right, that we will work on tomorrow as a class. So the first thing that I'll do tomorrow is explain what was missing and get this to work. After we do that, then we will go and look at some of the problems on this worksheet. Now, just to show you one last thing. All right, this is a working copy of it, and I think I've shown it to you already, but I do want you to understand all the code is the same code I just gave you. But if I come in here and let's go back to our data source, and I'm going to make this sales orders. We did this yesterday, so this will be sales orders. Okay, so let me do a file save all in here, and let me run the program again. That it will work. I select star from products, for example, and I run the query. There's all of our products. There's 40 of them. All right, if I select star from customers, and the caseness in here doesn't matter, of course, and I execute the query, there's our 27 customers. If I say select star rather from employees, I don't know what it was, we had like 10 employees or something like that. 8. There those are. So it will work. As soon as I go in and figure out what the heck the problem is, all right, it'll work. Okay. I don't want to put this one out there. I want to put the one out there that I was working on because I wrote better comments. But I'm going to look at this one, this one that I'm working on right now, and use that as a template to figure out what the heck I have in here that I don't have in my program. All right. So I'll do that. I'll get that working, and I'll have your worksheets, and I'll have all of that stuff out as soon as I possibly can. I'm going to shoot for having it out by the end of class today. All right, it is 11:07. I don't want to go on because our program doesn't work. So I'm going to stop it right here, pick it up here tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks.